Welcome to Story Time with Jason and Ricardo.
There it is. He came with iron breathing through the mangrove and the pine. Crosses raised like thunder, gold fever in their eyes. From Havana's burning harbor to the Florida's cursed shore, rode DeSoto with his horse fit, lifeboats demanding more.
Oh, I wish we had the
Armor
lyrics up.
flashed like sunlight on the swamps of Appalachia. Priest sang over
No time for that.
while the dogs trod through the weeds.
I know.
Every village left in ashes, every field consumed by flame, and the old ones watched in silence as strangers murdered names. But the river saw, oh, the river knew, the blood beneath the cypress roots lies the banners flew. Oh, DeSoto hear the drums tonight, echoes to the valley floor. You cross the water seeking gold, the death road at your door. For every fire your soldiers raised, 10,000 spirits rose, and the land itself remembered all the suffering you chose. Hey! Tuscaloosa stood waiting, tall as cedar in the rain, eyes black as stormy midnight, voice heavy with disdain. He welcomed them with silence, with a peace beneath the sky. But the people sharp and narrow as the Spaniards passed them by. Then Mabila erupted, smoking, screaming in the dawn. Steel against the cane bows till the sacred town was gone. Women burned beside their children, warriors sang while they died, and the horses screamed in terror as the red earth swallowed pride. And the river roared, oh, the river cried, for kingdoms buried under ash and nations crucified. Oh! Oh, DeSoto hear the drums tonight, calling through the flooded plains. You carry crowns and crucifixes, but delivered only chains. And though your name was carved in maps and praised by fallen kings, the forests keep another truth in the shadow of their wing. Oh. No gold in the Mississippi, only fever in the bone, only ghosts beside the campfires, only men too far from home. One by one the riders vanished, swallowed by the swamp and wind, till the mighty conquistador and could not rise again. They sank him in the river, weighted down beneath the tide, so the people would not know their God of iron died. But the waters carry whispers to every southern shore. You can kill the flesh of nations, but the spearmen survive the war. Oh, it's over. Hear the drums tonight, still beating through the years, through broken mountains, silent seals, through memory and tears. For the ones who stood at Nabila, for the tribes that would not bend. The river keeps their story now and sings in without end. The river remember, the river remember, the river remember, long as the river remember, the river remembered long after DeSoto was gone.
Yeah, it did. That's about a song, my friend.
Hello.
Ricardo. Welcome everyone. We've already seen in the chat. We've got Sarah and Jacqueline who just wrapped up the Universe Unveiled news. If you have not seen it yet, go check it out after we get done here.
Recovering the video.
Oh, that's right. They've got to recover it. No, it was so special. It popped off the second they ended. Can you believe that, Amy? YouTube didn't want it up so bad after they took out Neil deGrasse Tyson, Neil deGrasse Tyson. But no, they'll put it right back up. It's Riverside, man. It's iffy right now. But we love you, Riverside. We do. We're gonna give you a little pat on the head. We're gonna say it's okay. We all fuck up, and you're gonna do it just fine this time. We're here with you. We got this.
Yeah, well,
Um,
they are doing improvements.
yeah,
Truth to be
sure. It's
said,
just
there are
updates. I
improvements.
mean, to be clear, but it's just it's new for all of us, and it's buggy. So
But there's
whatever.
some
But
basic things. Like they allowed us to, if you notice now the intro that I will have to redo because
yeah,
of Jacob,
it's
but the
so
intro now is in 180, when
yeah,
before it was a 360 because they only allowed 100 megabytes intros. Now they
yeah.
allowed 1 gigabyte, which is quite able.
It was
But
great. Hey, you know what you're gonna have to do in the new update with Jacob? You're gonna have to have him run down the hill into that water instead of swimming across it.
you can do that. And but they forgot to keep the control of the music on the panel where you select the media. You no longer have control of the volume. So they
Right.
forgot about that, right? Well, it's only human. It shows that the team mustn't be a big one, but they are
Yeah,
working hard,
that's it.
and they have
Riverside,
good things.
see to that. We know you probably didn't do that on purpose. See, I stream on Riverside too. You never know. So, notes to editors, if we get these AI put out, please check on the music volume control. And I'm going to finish welcoming everybody to the Shaman and the Philosopher. What episode are we at, man? Is this
20,
25, 26?
26.
Episode 26. And we are going to finally dive into something that I, even before I had met Ricardo, sort of played around with the idea of, but never fully booted up in any way. And that is a reading of the DeSoto Chronicles, at least what I happen to have on hand at the moment. This is, well, I'm going to read you a little bit of the foreword so you'll know about the author of this particular Chronicles. Again, there's in this volume, I had two volumes in this set that was done by the University of Alabama Press. I lost the first volume, and that's where they had like three other chroniclers. I forget how many there are in total. But anyway, this second guy is like longest. So it's basically this complete thing is the that's what so we'll jump into that. Say hello. I checked the chat. Yeah, we said hello to everybody at the chat.
Yeah, we have
Um,
Sarah, Amy, Jacqueline. This guy Shaman, I don't know who it is,
I don't know
and
who he is. You can remember to you've got to operate highlight people's comments.
yeah, I did
Can I watch
everybody
this
already.
back? Can I watch this
I
back?
already highlighted everybody.
Oh, I can't see. You're doing a good job. My job's to read. I have caffeine here. I have Jacob asleep over here, and I have behind me to give us some context as to why we're digging into it. I have lots of really, really cool things behind me. But to get right to our point, let me reach through here. And we have many artifacts from the DeSoto expedition I've surrounded myself with. This is the Rose Sword Hilt piece that cracks open. Yeah,
Yeah,
you've seen it before. And I've
yeah.
got the crossbow bolt and man, the pieces with the I mean, let's get like real for a second, from the fire, that villa, right? I'm so used to holding these things that I often have to just sort of, to me its historical value is sort of lost on me because of my intimate relationship now with the story of it all and learning who and what this was versus who and what made this stone, right? Once I start diving in to the difference, then you can see why I started seeing these, metallic melted remnants as essentially, like you might see trash from modern day,
Yeah,
because
we need to start testing those species and
yeah, we
see.
do, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. for sure, absolutely. But you know what I mean. I'm whenever somebody with the money wants to do it, but
No, I mean, for instance, where I was in Oakton,
yeah.
um, the one of the guests was a guy called Nick, and he carries with him a test for gold, for iron, for
Oh, cool.
copper, and it's all based on drops, and then it checks the color and it tells it what it is. So there might be
Yeah,
cheap
I
ways
mean,
for us to do simple tests, and then if it is promising, then we can go to serious tests.
yeah, for sure. Well, you know, I mean, I keep most of the cool shit up, but when you've been me and you're in context, you know, there is no other explanation or something that was obviously a man-made piece of metal. If you're here, it's you know it's metal. You can put
Or
a
melted
metal
metal.
detector. Yeah, it's been through everything in the bill is melted. We'll get to that part of the book. You know, and then on the back, right, it's got all these little clay pieces and pebbles, right, that would have been on the
Yeah,
ground. You see where they've fallen out.
yeah.
You know, it's just on and on. And then, you know, you got a crossbow bolt, right, the head of a bolt that is, as you see, is
Mm-hmm.
melted and poured apart. You know, so I'm in no hurry for testing. My point being, as soon as someone shows me the way in a easy economic way, let's do it. But to my point, and what I was saying there, dude, was kind of showing some of that metal versus the rock is kind of, I think, to your point you put out about why it is what is our real motivation for taking a look at some of these firsthand accounts, right? And it is not to in any way look at for my money or I think yours the story of these guys, right? You know, it's written from their perspective, and we'll have fun with the audience sort of parsing through that, right? And then what all that can tell us and infer from. But what we're deeply interested in is the fact that these chronicles, along with some other, there were a few other, you know, Floridian in La Florida, which is what they called North America. And there were a few other ventures, right, before DeSoto. So we have some accounts, right? But this would be by far the one that came the most sort of furthest inland, encountered the most, and we have the most accounts thereof. So I say that these are the primary firsthand accounts of the contact with the culture that existed here on this continent. Right? Period. It's the first time what we call have been taught to call civilization, you know, more aptly maybe Western, what civ, whatever. But this is its first contact with what the culture that existed here before it got here. Now, something happens, Ricardo. As soon as that contact takes place, I don't have the numbers in my head, you know, but before someone else came back through where DeSoto had been, it was roughly 100 years, I think, right? Whenever Luna he came up, you know, roughly as far. It was sometime before then.
Yeah,
But
generation and
what
a half. So yeah.
yeah, what happened is the disease, right? You've got to we're gonna read all about they'll have their own names for it, but we're gonna read all about the human trafficking, right? We're gonna read all about the mass rape that was going on. And not only then dragging not only the contact between the West and the natives, but then they were dragging natives, you know, all over the place with them out of their homes in contact. So they were spreading diseases which had not been experienced by the people over here, and it very, very quickly, you know, eradicated, started destroying, you know, the systems that were in place. And who dies first, man? The young and the old, right? So the story, the culture, it just kind of gets shattered. So much so that by the time any written guys writing stuff down get back here, you start to see that what's here, what they're writing wasn't what they were writing, right? The numbers had dwindled, and you even start to see that the people who are encountered next don't remember the culture, right? It quickly shatters. And we then get handed, you know, we being the general public, right? We then get handed this narrative that is of these, I like your term, I've heard you use before, these butt flap people, right? These very, very primitive people. Well, to stay on our stated point, when you read these first-hand accounts, you see that simply is not the case. It's very clear. It's not hard to see, even when writing from the Portuguese. By the way, Ricardo, who's back in Portugal, many of I think even this particular chronicler, we'll see in the forward, but many of the people on the expedition, they were in fact Portuguese, not Spanish. So it is, there's quite a full circle there. But what we hope to really spread here is sort of the opening of eyes that I received when I went through this thing and I saw the picture painted of what was here. Right? And that's what our objective is to start showing what the people who were here, who encountered the natives, that they saw. Because it's not what we've been told was here in its entirety.
Yeah. And we don't have reports from all the others that might have came before. Like, doesn't matter if they are from India, from Middle East, if they are from Rome or from China. We don't have those reports. Or if the Chinese exist, but we can't read Chinese, and they are not very prone to translate it, so we can't get
Oh,
it
yeah.
that easy. And that one is one that we can read in
Hello.
detail.
Yeah, I'm live doing the Shaman and the Philosopher. This is my daughter Charlotte and Kieran. It's really my daughter split into two many years ago, and we call the other one Kieran. What are you two doing? What do you want? What is it? Yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, yeah. I'm heading down there tomorrow. See, I can get you guys into the podcast. I'm heading down tomorrow to see your uncle's lake and take his boat out to the mound sites that are literally out in the like Mobile Bay. But yeah, absolutely. We'll be. I was already thinking about Mentone as well with Kieran. Well, I know you want beach too. Okay, well, beach before Mentone. You see, man, you see what it's like. They don't want to go see the big rocks and waterfalls. They want to go be able to walk to the cool little shops and like, go sit on the beach and look, proper and attract the attention of young men and then make fun of those young men, because dad just walked up in this big hairy thing and now they have to, they weren't being young, growing, beautiful young ladies, which they are. And yes, we'll go. Okay, can I call you back? I'm getting ready to read the DeSoto Chronicles for this audience here. Okay, bye. Bye, Kieran. Bye.
So, my point was that,
Everybody but family first.
yeah, it was.
They're not with
Uh,
me now, so when they call it. Anyway.
and by listening to it and taking care to the words that are being used, these people are described not as savages, although they keep calling them savages, right? Which is interesting. They say that their culture surpasses even high points in Europe, but they still call them savages. So,
Yeah,
and that's what I'm
yeah,
interested that people listen. That
the word savages, and remember, this was obviously translated, from in most cases Portuguese, right? They seem to use the word savages the
for
same way.
non-Christians,
Yes, the same way we might use like any noun, like, whatever,
and the
Indian.
Romans used
It,
barbarians, which they
Indian's
weren't.
not correct. India's nowhere near here, and yet people still today use it, right? It's just a word that denotes something. And yeah, they were using the word savage at the same time as we'll see that they're marveling. They're literally marveling over behavior, over behavior, over language, over temples, over pieces of art, over everything. But physical prowess,
Yeah.
there's even in the obviously tilted, obviously one might call it racist, sort of viewpoint that this Western civilization will have against the indigenous, it's really impossible for them to hide their sort of awe at so many aspects of everything they were finding. And it also becomes clear what they were looking for. Like Ricardo, when I go out, dude, and I start finding things like this in a creek, right, or in a river, and it's in an area where I already know there's mounds. This book already tells me there was heavy presence. When I start finding mounds shaped like impact craters separated by 12 miles with fake dead creeks created to mimic the living river on the actual thing, when I start getting out and finding that, I realize that I am just tapping on to something, to what they were capable of and how they saw this place and operated with it. And what this does, when I color it with that, it gives me just a much more, tactile, right? I'm able to read much into what they were saying, see their perspective, see what their the Western values were, and then infer from there, because what I'm tapping on is just there's so little left, but there's so much yet to be found, is the oxymoron we labor under with this narrative. So we're gonna do what we can to just start examining the first-hand accounts and see where that gets us.
Looking forward to it.
So obviously for the audience, and I haven't even checked the chat. Let me be a good co-host and see what's going on over here. There might be breaks. I haven't attempted reading this much in a while. I used to do it a lot when I was a very young man on the stage, um, and somewhat thereafter. So we'll
Last
just,
Wednesday?
well, I mean, I read like 4 pages. We're talking about reading for like 2 hours. Yeah.
No, you're not going to read 2 hours. You're going to read
I,
and we
f-
stop and we talk, and
I
so
figure if
it
nothing
will
else,
take a
I can.
few episodes. It will take a few episodes for us to go through it.
How's the audio from here?
It's good.
Good. Okay. So I figure also if I have to, I can log right in on my mobile and we can just go sit outside and I can recline in the hammock and we can just do it that way if this gets too
Then
laborious.
then you fall asleep.
Well, as I begin, I know we do have some listeners. For instance, Jacqueline, who was gracious enough to give us some shout out in their show earlier. She for a long time has been after just me doing this and reading. So I do want to attempt for that to do my best at it. So let's just begin with, I'll read a paragraph or two of the foreword just to give you enough about the particular chronicler that you'll be hearing from. Of the four accounts of the DeSoto expedition, La Florida by Garcilaso de la Vega is by far the longest, and with its commentary occupies this entire volume. It is presented in a new translation for 1935 United States DeSoto Expedition Commission. Um, okay, so tell us. Okay, described as Garcilaso's account. This is misleading because Garcilaso himself never saw North America. This is true. This is true. He is recording what he was told by a soldier who was on the expedition. They go on to say they believe his source was Captain Gonzalo Silvestri, who served with the expedition, uh, but they're not sure. Yeah, there's one thing they say here, and they have one footnote in this entire account. They say, who may or may not have told the account with flourishes and embellishments of an old soldier reminiscing. See, they're always wanting to add this. They might been reminiscing. Now, this right here was the second um, volume I got my hands on, and the first one I read had uh, four, or I believe at least three other chroniclers, and all of roughly the same accounts, right? And they all match, roughly, right? What you'll notice gets messed up between the translation, between the different chroniclers, is we went to town A, we marched 5 days, and then went to town B before we fought at town C, right? And now another guy is going to say, we started at town A, we marched 2 days, and we got to town C before we sat there for a day and then attacked town B, right? It's just, they just will get the order of things a little off. But what they describe, what they encounter, and how they all spoke about it. This guy even goes around and like talks to other, chroniclers. And he specifically even goes into deep evidence when he starts describing Tuscaloosa's size, right? They all match by, large part on everything but, again, your details. There was this town named Tuscaloosa, but no, actually, it was a town called Piatti. That's something you run into in Mabilla. Of course, when you're talking, geez, these guys wandered for, was it another 3 years before they even got, to Mexico alive, right? So you're talking good amounts of time between, ledgers getting translated, stories getting told, and these things then getting put down. So that's the forewarning I've got. That, and they're obviously, here's why I give so much credence to it, because their biases are everywhere, right? They call these people, they describe them as lazy. You know why they said they're lazy in this book here? Because they didn't make good slaves. Because why was that? You read on, because they had bounty, they had everything they needed. They didn't understand the Western mind of laboring as such. Okay, and then they just go on about motives of the author and et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to leave all of that because, again, these are academics. And again, my challenge to anybody about about an academic is, we'll see as we look through here. I'll read every single footnote to you. It's not going to add but about 60 seconds, I think, to the total reading. And that's when they're describing Mabilla, the thing that the DeSoto Commission in 1935 was looking for. Okay. So when they did this translation back then, they obviously were quite mindful because that is who they were doing the translation for. Right. Now, the largest footnote is when they're talking about Mabilla. They say that this description is obviously embellished. Right. The thing they couldn't find is the only thing they comment on, and they say they're obviously not describing it correctly. Well, I can't help but be slightly biased, fellas, because I found it, and it's pretty much just like they described, except we learned that they were duped quite mightily by the natives that were here in a way that today we wouldn't come up with. All right, Ricardo. Now, here's the question for the producer, which you'll be for this. I know everybody says start at the beginning, right? But what you're going to have here is you're going to have quite a lot of what was going on, why DeSoto was doing it, right? Where he trained, what they did on the way, what they did in Cuba. You know what I'm saying? So, do we want everything or do we want to like start with the landing? What do you think? See, chapter 1. Hernando de Soto asks of the Emperor Charles V the conquest of La Florida. His Majesty grants it to him. So, see, it's the whole. And then they talk about other people who have been to Florida before De Soto. So, what's the producer's opinion, boss? We can go, we go 100 pages before they arrive at Florida.
You I know and now understand why you were not. You will keep asking because I was muted. I was saying just start on the landing.
Oh.
My angel just messaged me and say you're muted. So like I'm here being
Okay.
saying just start at the landing. Why don't you
Uh,
start at the landing and
uh,
keep asking me?
so I will back up probably one chapter because we get a good idea of what all it lands with, and for some reason he does that in the previous chapter. So that's going to be page. Yeah, let's check out.
Just gonna quiet the television.
Okay, so all I'm going to do here is read the section that gives us an understanding of what was going to embark from Cuba with old Hernando. The matters we have told being concluded, and it appearing to the governor that the time was now propitious for navigation, he ordered the supplies and other things that were to be taken to be embarked with all haste. And when all were loaded on the ships and ready to go, the horses were embarked. In the ship Santa Anna were 80, in the ship San Cristobal 60, in that called Concepcion 40, and in the other three smaller vessels, the San Juan, the Santa Barbara, and the San Antone, they embarked 70. In all, they took 350 horses on this expedition. When the military forces were embarked, which with those of the island who desired to go on this conquest, not counting the sailors, not counting the sailors of the 8 ships, the caravel, and the brigantines, they came to 1,000 men, all excellent people, well trained in arms, with equipment for themselves and trappings for their horses, so that neither up to that time nor afterward has there been seen here such a good force of men and horses assembled at one place for any expedition made in the conquest of the Indians. Concerning the whole matter of ships, men, horses, and military equipment, Alonso de Carmona and Juan Coles are in accord in their accounts. Right, Amy? Amy said, all excellent people in quotes. Uh huh. Correct. Bunch of murderers. The governor. Okay, guys, so there will be words I'll be omitting here on because so they're going to refer to Hernando by several different terms interchangeably. You will hear the governor. You will hear adelantado. You will hear Hernando de Soto. Okay? So oftentimes you will just hear me say Hernando because I think it's the most derogatory. But other than that, anytime you hear governor or adelantado, if I'm just reading quickly, we're still talking about the same guy. So, Hernando took this number of ships, horses, and fighting men, exclusive of the mariners from the port of La Habana, when he set sail on May 12th. Oh, look at us. We're doing this timely as well. So he left Havana on May 12th of the year 1539 to make the entrada and conquest of La Florida. He took his fleet so well supplied with all kinds of provisions that one seemed to be rather in a very well provisioned city rather than navigating on the sea. There we shall leave him to return to a new disturbance. Okay, so he gets back to how he left
Explain
his.
me one thing.
Yes.
So he got permission from Charles V to conquer the land. Do they did they had any notion of what they're going to face? Are there any previous contacts that would
Yeah.
tell them what?
So here, I can answer you from actually this author, if you'd like.
Because it's important. How do you going to conquer something if you
Yeah,
don't know what you're going to find? How many
yeah.
men? What
All right,
weapons? What
audience,
defenses do they have?
we're done with page 91, launching into the landing. As soon as I answered the question of the boss here. So part one tells us concerning other discoverers who have gone to La Florida. Description of Florida and who was the first discoverer of it, the second, and the third. Okay, so we want to look here around page 63 to 64, and we should have the answer to your question, man.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just think it's important to
No, it's
understand.
okay. All right. Hernando de Soto asked the Emperor Charles V the conquest of Florida. Hernando de Soto, former governor and captain general of the provinces and señores of the great kingdom of La Florida, whose history this is, together with that of many other Spanish gentlemen and Indians, which we are attempting to write for the glory and honor of the most holy Trinity, God our Lord, and with the desire of advancing his holy Catholic faith and the crown of Spain. There you go. That's your colored narrative. Was present at the first conquest of El Peru and at the imprisonment of Atahualpa, the tyrant king. Okay, so this goes on. But to get,
Atahualpa was the tyrant.
yeah,
Maybe he was, but they did worse than he done. So
so calculating the whole from the fifth, they're doing math here of the coinage of Castilian ducats. It is known it was equivalent to 3,293,000 ducats, not including what was squandered without being counted for the. Oh, this is how much they spent. Huh. Okay.
well,
So,
never mind. What I wanted to understand if there was previous people there that have
yeah,
seen what they were going to face.
Coronado,
Yeah.
yeah, Juan Vasquez Coronado, and he had made it up a little ways here. The great land of La Florida will be a difficult thing to depict as completely as we should like to do, for as it is so extensive and large in every direction, and is not won or even discovered in its entirety, its confines are unknown. What is most certain and not unknown is that to the south lies the ocean sea and the great island of Cuba. To the north, although they claim Hernando de Soto went 1,000 leagues inland, as we shall tell below, it is not known where it ends, whether it borders upon the sea or upon other lands. To the east, it terminates at the land they call Los Bacallos, through a certain French cosmographer, places another extremely large province between, which he calls New France, because of having simply the name there. To the west, it borders upon the provinces of the seven cities, so called by the discoverers of those lands, they having left Mexico. So this lists all the people. Okay, Viceroy Don Antonio de Mendoza discovered them in the year 1539, taking as captain Juan Vasquez Coronado, Vicino of the said city. By Vicino is understood in the Indies he who has a repartimiento of Indians. Okay, so he that could get talk to the natives. This is the significance of the term Vicino because they were obliged to maintain a domicile where they had the Indians. Okay, so this is out west. Um,
Yeah, you can go to the landing. I just wanted to understand if he knew what he's going to face.
yeah, I'm just getting through here. The because of Coronado and everything, you've got about the limits of land of Mexico. The first discoverer, so you've got Ponce de Leon, a gentleman who was a native of Leon and a nobleman, having been governor of Puerto Rico, inasmuch as the Spaniards of that time thought of nothing except the discovery of new lands. He fitted out two caravels and went in search of an island they called Bimini. Oh, look at that. Bimini Road on a map, and it sank. He went looking for an island they called Bimini. Huh. Everywhere we go is the disaster, man. Everywhere we go, everywhere we go is on maps, dude. According to others, there, according to fabulous tales of the Indians, was a fountain that rejuvenated the age. He traveled in search of it for many days, lost and without finding it. At the end of this time, he was driven by a storm on the coast to the north of the island of Cuba, which coast he named Florida, because of the day on which he saw it being Easter.
Uh, really?
It was the year 1513, and according to the reckoners, Easter was celebrated that year on March 27th. Explain that, Izzy.
I don't get it.
What does Florida have to do with it? I don't either.
No, I remember reading and being taught that it was called Florida because when they landed, it was a full prayer as the eye can see, flourishing, all filled with plants, with flowering plants. And they
Flora.
call it Florida, which is the word in Spanish to a flowering plant,
Got it.
right?
Got it.
But if it is
Okay.
because of Easter, I don't see the connection. I have to look into it.
I
There
mean, it
might
was
be one, I don't
spring
know.
and things were blooming.
But they always find these places in holy days. I
I
don't know
know.
how they do it,
Yeah.
but it's only on a holy day that they
Yeah.
landed. Either they keep at sea and wait to go on that day, or it's a complete farce.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what they, well, whatever. We'll keep it. Well, yeah, we'll keep reading. Juan Ponce de Leon was content simply with seeing what that it was land, and without making any effort to ascertain whether it was the mainland or an island. So not a lot of information out of him. A few years after Ponce de Leon, a pilot named Murelu, Murlo, master of Caravel, while traveling about battering with the Indians, was driven by a storm upon the coast of La Florida, or to some other land whose location is not known, where the Indians received him peaceably. In the course of his trade, called barter, they gave him some trifles of silver and a small quantity of gold, which he returned very satisfied to the island of Santo Domingo. That's odd. Without having performed the office of a good pilot in marking out the land and taking the latitude, as he might have well done. Huh. So he thinks he was in Florida. He thinks there was silver and gold. I gotcha. At this same time, seven wealthy men, here we are with seven again, Ricardo, of Santo Domingo, among whom one was Lucas Vasquez de Ayllon, oider of the Audiencia and former appellate judge in the same island before the, oh, this is a lot of history before we even get there. The Spaniards went ashore, the Indians advanced with great fear to see the ships as a strange thing they had never before seen, and they wondered at seeing bearded men who wore clothing. But with all this, they treated with one another amicably, each displaying the things that they had. The Indians gave some fine marten skins that gave off a very fragrant odor, some irregular pearls, also some seed pearls, and a small amount of silver. The Spaniards also gave their articles of trade, which being ended, the ships having taken the shores they needed and the necessary wood and water, the Spaniards very affably invited the Indians to come aboard to see the ships and the things that they carried in them. Whereupon, trusting in the friendship and good treatment, they came on. Okay. And so that was it. They set sail for Santo Domingo. Any
Okay.
other explorers?
Um,
No.
so Amy did a search, and she says that
Still couldn't find it.
apparently they still don't know where the name came from,
Yeah, this was obviously this dude's opinion. Um,
nor what it is.
it made no sense, right? But again, you've got all that, you've got all the Catholic messaging that's going to be pent up in this because that was part and parcel of sort of the, it's how they excused what they did to them, the rest of the world. You know, they did murderous and awful things under a banner of the church, right? And I don't conflate the two. I don't think I just don't conflate the two. Um,
Yeah, but
okay.
you know also that the the sailors that went on these voyages, they were not knights with fervorous religious
No, that's what I'm saying.
behavior. They
No,
were scavengers. They were the rascals, the
right,
fearless.
right.
nothing to lose. They already went out of Spain to gain pardons or to flee persecution or whatever. So,
Right. You've got many gentlemen who they name in here, right? Who, because they come from money, right, and because there is family money, they can be. That's what gentlemen was. They can then go off and gain honor and grand adventure. There's a handful of those, I'm sure, but when it came to behavior, they all erred towards the, as you say, the 80, 90% of the army that was the, you know, rapscallion, willing to go off into the unknown. Just tells you what part of society you're
well,
soil.
it's a known tactic of colonization. That's what the
Well,
British did to colonize Australia. They gave pardons to prisoners.
well, that's correct. Correct.
So,
That's exactly what. Yeah. I heard somebody say once, what was it, that the um, Cajun, who are French, descendant here in the United States around New Orleans, the Cajuns. Somebody once says that what was it? Cajuns. I forget the joke now. It was the French mating with the UK outlaws in Australia. They came anyway. I totally blew that joke. That's what happens when you're live. Um, so he goes on to list several more here. You've got Cabeza de Vaca. Um, several. There
that's
were,
head of cow. That's what that means.
yeah. Well, DeSoto is going to head of cow.
Yeah,
DeSoto
cabeza de
himself.
vaca is a head of a cow. That's what it means.
Soto is going to run into a couple of refugees from some of these earlier little bumpins, right? Navarrez made his voyage to Florida. He took a pilot. Um, yeah, nothing to write at length. Okay. Tennessee.
Jacqueline says that Cajuns are French from Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the French. That's right. They're the French outlaws. That's right. They sent their outlaws to Canada, and that's why Cajuns make sense. Because then they went down to here and made
All
Cajun.
good people with morals and
I love them. They're, whatever, dude. I may not present it, but I got about good 60 to 80% redneck in me on any given day, which
well, but
is, doesn't
redneck
negate.
doesn't mean an actual savage, right? Or immoral
No,
person.
in my mind and in all honesty and practice, it's a word for, at least these days. I think it translates as a good word for hunter gatherer. I mean, I use it proudly. I was a young kid and I went to stay in Oklahoma. Way out in the middle of nowhere. Now that you've been to the states here, you see how we got these fast spaces. I went out to Oklahoma from New York City to do a show, To Kill a Mockingbird. I was directing, and the guy that was playing Atticus Finch was a massive redneck, Al. What's up, Al? Wish I could find him. Sleeveless shirts all the time, sang karaoke. Mustang Sally would blow your fucking soul apart when you heard him sing it, right? So he was playing Atticus Finch, and he didn't know what he was doing. But he decided that he would train me to be a redneck, because I was coming from New York City, if I could train him to be a stage actor. And anyhow, he said he succeeded, but he still called me a faux redneck. So, all right. So we've got several others. Have I answered your question? They
Yes,
didn't.
completely.
They didn't get far. They left a few people behind. There was a shipwreck. There was a couple of black slaves that got, run away or freed, and DeSoto will indeed bump into him and start leaning on one as a one, what do you want to call it? Castaway or runaway as a translator. The number of men who embarked, we already said that, 950 Spaniards of all classes, there you go, Ricardo, met in San Lucar. All young men, for there was scarcely one among them who had gray hairs. To many of them, the governor gave aid in the form of money, sending it to each one in accordance with his quality and condition and the following. So they were mercenaries.
Yes.
That's what he paid them beforehand, you know.
Well,
Many
they are
received
the real expendables. You could put it
Many
that way.
received this assistance through necessity, and others, with respect and civility, refused to receive it. It appearing to them more fitting to assist the governor if they could than to be assisted by him. So, as you said, all types, but mostly mercenaries. Hmm. Okay, 950, and then by the time embarked, and by the time they left Cuba, they were up to 1,000, not counting the sailors. And let's go back to where we were, which was arriving in Florida.
And you have to realize that you don't put Miss Daisy as the warden of a high security prison, right? So the people that were leading these gentlemen, they were also very ruthless. Right? So
Well,
these
I mean,
guys knew that they were criminals, but they were not criminals enough for the head of the band, because they would not forgive an inch of
they saw
insurrection.
procuring large amounts, a few hundred sex slaves in each town for their men as a necessity, just as we see food, whatever we supply our army today, right? As a necessity. They saw food and carnal desires of their men that you had to handle, right? And
They all needed their 2 seconds.
exactly, I mean, well, 300 by 900, I mean, they probably they got all they want, and then they would even like trade amongst them, and some of them would decide to, I want to keep this one instead of letting them go in the next town, because they keep them until they'd get 300 more in the next town. You know what I'm saying? And then they let them go, and they could go back home. But they decide, no, I want to keep this one. There's all kinds of stories of the girls like hitting them over the head and trying to get away, and they just kill them. You know, but it's just
There's
so
another
much.
one ahead. So
Yeah, we can't see it from our worldview, right? We can't give them that inch.
no, those old good old
These
days.
dudes were not, these dudes were not, they didn't have the worldview we've got, y'all. They didn't. It doesn't excuse it, and it doesn't, it should just inform you that they saw this as a necessity that was okay. Everybody knew about it. I mean, this was, what you did. It was like fucking providing
Well,
rationing.
by that time, even the Pope had them. So,
Well, this is true.
and maybe boys too. So
Popes were having orgies, and that's history. Y'all look it up. Nothing against the Catholics, but it's
it's
I've seen
true.
that popes were.
One of the Pope was even a woman. So, and no
I
one
haven't
knew
heard that
until.
one.
Yeah, it's true. One of the
Oh,
popes
I
was a
believe you.
woman.
Mm, I haven't. All the obscurities I've looked into so far have been true, including the orgy. Um, yeah, it is whatever. They're men in power, and they hide behind church. And of course, everybody knows I say that as wearing a cross here, right? They ain't got a damn thing to do
Yeah,
with
but the, one thing
power.
is not related to the other.
Oh,
For
that's what
much
I'm
they
saying,
wanted to say.
right? That's what I mean by people like to go, oh, this was Christians that did these awful things to these natives. No, the fuck it was not. It was these men we're describing, whose banner, just like a pirate had a banner, and that banner meant something to him, but it allowed him to do certain things. If he was under that banner, he didn't have to answer to this rule, right? Okay, well, their banner was Christianity, and that's all it was. And you'll see in their behavior. And you'll ask yourself, well, if they were there trying to convert, how come they were raping 800 of them out of a village of 1,000? That don't make no sense, you know? it's not. And that's what I mean by I don't relate to things. I don't see that this was Christians doing this. This was just people that all through history have used that story, that banner, right? And they've stolen it, and they've stolen the reality of it for evil means ad nauseum. That much is a given, but it has
Look,
nothing to do with the actual thing itself.
if you are what's the expression, a cutthroat, if you are a cutthroat and someone says, well, if you are willing to take a voyage where you can become rich, uh, would you accept a sword and food and maybe women that we find in the way? Of course, they're going to say yes. Religion or spirituality, it doesn't exist in this equation. It's just mainly survival and greed.
Right,
That
and that's saying it well. I mean,
sorry, you are cutting. What?
I said I didn't mean to interrupt you. You're saying that's exactly what it was. That's what the expedition to me it seems represented, especially when you see it and what it encountered here, and how the thing here operated versus how this machine that wrote this up could be different. Let's get his ass on land.
Yeah.
The governor, Hernando de Soto, who was, as we said, was sailing towards La Florida, sighted its shores on the last day of May. Having spent, oh, we're almost there too. We got a week to go. Having spent 19 days at sea because of encountering unfavorable weather, the vessels anchored in a deep and good bay, which they named El Espiritu, and because it was late, no one disembarked that day. On the 1st of June, so they named the bay El Spiritu Santo. On the 1st of June, and like you said earlier, because it was late, no one disembarked that. Like, on the 1st of June, the small boats went to the shore and returned laden with grass for the horses. And they brought also many green grapes from the vines, and they found growing wild in the woods. The Indians of all the great kingdom of La Florida do not cultivate this plant or regard it as highly as do other nations, though they eat its fruit, when it is well ripened or made into raisins. So I guess they're talking about muscadines here. They have to be. Yeah.
So what they're saying is they were not drunks because they ate it and even dry it as food,
Right.
right?
Right.
So they just didn't make wine. So
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 far, we
so
have
they are described as not using it, which
yeah.
is.
Muscadines are great, man. I love the muscadine juice. Um, it's good stuff. And the
But are
wine.
you sure? Are you sure that the microphone you are speaking through is that one you are holding? Because I'm not.
Yeah.
No. You have to change your microphone. You can do that on the recording. Oh, you can do it live. You just change this. Go to microphone and put the microphone you're holding. That's why it's cutting. You can keep the
Yeah.
headphones. Just change the microphone.
Can't change during recording.
No. Yes, you can. The microphone you can change.
You hear me now?
Yes. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's the microphone that is picking you up.
Okay.
Have to change it to another. This is I'm in the correct one. Yeah. Nope, nothing coming through.
Ricardo, can you hear me?
Yes, now it's working.
Test, test.
Yes, yes. That's the one.
It's in my pocket now.
Much better now. Yeah.
You can't hear crap. Is it better now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, there we go.
Now you
More
have a
we
voice like this, more boomy.
more
No, yeah,
boomy. So
but the other one was cutting. That's the problem. It was
okay,
cutting.
got it. Cool, 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 cool. So we're good now.
Yeah.
I'm getting hot. It's the caffeine. All right, so let's land in Bay Espiritu Santo. Where are we at? The muscadines were being ripened and made into raisins.
Yeah, exactly.
Our people were much pleased with these good specimens they brought from the land, for they were similar to the grapes of Spain, and they had not found them in the lands of Mexico, nor in the whole of El Peru. On the 2nd day of June, the governor ordered that 300 infantry go ashore for the act and ceremony of taking possession of the land for the Emperor Charles V, King of Spain. Following the ceremony, the men marched all day along the coast without seeing a single Indian, and they remained that night and slept on land. Toward dawn, the Indians fell upon them with such impetuosity and boldness that they retreated to the water's edge. And as they sounded the alarm, both infantry and cavalry came out from the ships to their assistance as rapidly as they had been on land. The Lieutenant General Vasco de Porcalo was in command of the relief party, and he found the infantry who were on the shore as confused and perturbed as raw recruits, getting in one another's way and fighting, and some of them already wounded with arrows, having brought up the relief and followed the enemy for some distance.
That's too loud. You can keep it at distance. It's working fine.
Riverside's getting our. Oh, I've got an audio read live now. They have changed a good bit. The Lieutenant General Day. Where were we at? Let's see. It feels like. Here, let's do this. There. Now I feel better. All right, so he finds them even getting wounded already, getting in their own ways. So friendly fires taking place in their first skirmish. Which they gave him during the skirmish. The arrow passed through the trappings, saddle tree, and pads and penetrated the ribs more than a third of its length up to the notch. Shit.
Through the armor?
Yeah, that's what it said.
Good point.
The horse.
You're not made of stone, for sure.
Yeah. The general's horse fell dead from an arrow wound near the saddle, which was given him during the skirmish. The arrow
need
passed.
To hold the microphone.
Do you know how many weeks I've been having to hold this microphone?
I know.
Okay, it's been fucking. It's Christmas. I've been having to have this prop as a microphone, so you're gonna have to help me out. Now that Riverside has finally caught up to my technology, you're gonna have to remind me. Thank you. Like a cigarette. Now what am I going to do? Speaking of which, where's my nicotine? Good to know, though. I'm glad their update means I don't have to do that anymore. All right. The lieutenant, he saw them getting in. Okay, the horse. Let's go back to the horse.
They shot the general from the horse down.
Right. The arrow passed through the trappings, saddle tree, and pads and penetrated the ribs more than a third of its length up to the notch. So up to, like, I guess the feather or whatever.
The feather, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a strong arm, a strong arrow, and a very strong head. It can't be a stone head, because I don't see a stone head.
And a sure aim, right? Because, if that's not even, it's got to be. On this day and the next, they continued to disembark the horses. And all the people went ashore, having rested for 8 or 9 days, and left orders with regards to the ships. They marched inland a little more than 2 leagues to the Pueblo. See, Pueblo, I try to just say town, so to the town of, and their word for chief bugs me. It's cacique. So you'll also hear me bounce between that and chief. To the town of a chief named Hirahigua. Wrangel says that they were in the land of a chief named Osita, with whom Panfilo de Narvaez had fought when he went to conquer that province, although afterwards the Indian had been induced to become a friend. During that time, it is not known for what reason Narvaez, angered, had committed certain offenses against him, which as they are so detestable as are not recounted here. Oh, that's interesting because he recounts some pretty wacky stuff.
Nasty stuff, but that is too much. We draw the line here.
I don't want to know what it was. If it was too much, you're about to tell me about everything
I don't know.
DeSoto did.
Playing with their bowels or something like that must have been something really, really nasty.
Right? Playing with their bowel. Oh. Look what I got. Here, squeeze it.
You want a collar? Just don't burst it.
Oh, my Lord. What do I do with it? Watch it. Stuck on it.
Yeah.
In spite of all this, those in the ship were cautious and did not wish to go ashore. Then the chief sent 4 of his principal Indians to the ship.
Who didn't want to go to the shore? Who?
Yeah, this is recounting what happened with Narvaez. He's taken us back in time a little bit.
Oh, I thought you said the bishop didn't want to go ashore. I didn't understood what he said.
Let's see. No. Okay, so what they're trying to describe to you is that this chief they encounter was left with fear and hatred of the Spaniards, right? So that when he learned, what visual? Oh, so that when, sorry, Demi. Okay, so Hiraquo was left with such fear and hatred of the Spaniards that when he learned of the coming of DeSoto to his country, he went to the forest, abandoning his house and town, and despite the friendly messages, gifts, and promises the governor sent him by his Indian subjects, whom the governor had seized, he was never willing to come back peaceably, nor to hear any of the messages he sent him. This dude was fucked up so bad by Narvaez that when he heard another one was coming, he ran to the forest and wouldn't take messages. No,
Nobody's home.
that's it. Not here. Left his home. Just didn't even wait to see him to verify. Just heard another one was coming. It was like, I'm gone. Oh my goodness. That's what we heard all we needed to about what this author would not recount. Man, this is the first ones they encounter. Think about it. Just think about that, dude. Like if I come to your house, right? And somebody's going to come over that's one of my friends after I come to your house. You hear they're coming and you leave. Front door open. They come out of the house hollering, Ricardo, it's okay. We brought you some food. You're just in the trees. That's what they
You're
did.
not getting me alive.
That's what they did to the natives, y'all. Oh, man. Okay, so
I told you it would be fun to read it.
oh, it's so bad. So bad. All right, so they entreat him with gifts and messages. Rather, he was incensed against those who brought the gifts and messages, saying, since they knew how offended and aggrieved he was with that nation, they should have known better than to bring him their messages, that if it were their heads, he would receive them with pleasure. But their words...
Can you see sending that message back?
Ricardo going, I don't want their words, but if he sends me his head, I'll come back in my house. You know? Ooh. Oh, the great conquistadors.
You're free to visit if your head come detached from your body.
Other than that, I don't want to hear it. Bunch of lies. They show you what they are. Believe them, motherfucker. I'm not having it. Okay, here we go. Their heads. Where was their heads? Man, I got tears. I've been laughing so much with
So
you.
am I.
My blurry vision here. Okay. He would, if it were their heads, he would receive them with pleasure, but their words and names he had no desire to hear. All this and more can infamy bring about, especially if it was done without blame on the part of the injured. So that the extent of this Indian's fury against the Spaniards may be better seen, we see it, bro. It is fitting to tell here some of the cruelties and martyrdoms he imposed upon 4 Spaniards who must have been of Navarrese's party, which, though it will prolong our history somewhat, is not beside the point, but rather will be very useful for it. Okay, so this is when he goes back to Navarrese and he talks about what this particular chief had done to them. All right. Navarrese left the country of his chief, having done what he was told. There came by the bay of the ships that he had remained behind. Inasmuch as the chief suspected that it was one of Navarrese's ships and that it was searching for him, he wished to capture all who were in it and burn them alive. Okay, so he sees a ship that's coming through after Navarrese, and he wants to catch them and burn them. In order to secure them, he feigned friendship for Navarrese and sent word to them, saying that their captain had been there and had left orders as to what that ship was to do if it should make that port.
How about put fire to yourselves?
Good man. And to persuade them to believe him, he showed from land 2 or 3 sheets of white paper and some old letters he had obtained from past friendship with the Spaniards, or in some other manner he had kept carefully. Mm-hmm. In spite of all this, those on the ship were cautious and did not wish to go ashore.
No, that one is crazy.
Yeah, they heard about their boss already. They knew what was in his wake. They had done this shit before. Then the chief, they were like, that does not sound like Navarrese. I'm not getting off this boat. It's a trap. Yeah. In spite of all this, those on the ship were cautious and did not wish to go ashore. Then the chief sent 4 of his principal Indians to the ship in a canoe, saying that since they did not trust him, he was sending those 4 men, nobles and caballero. Does not seem applicable to the Indians because they had no horses, from which the word name is derived, but since in Spain they are regarded as nobles, they called them that. Okay.
Cavalleros means having a horse.
Yeah, but
horse is cavallo. So
they use it here, I guess, calling this native a noble. So Navarrese sends him 4 basically captives to try to get him to come off the ship. As hostages and security, so that the Spaniards who desired word of their captain Navarrese might leave the ship. And if they still were not reassured, he offered to send them further pledges. Seeing this, 4 Spaniards came out and entered the canoe with the Indians who had brought the hostages. The chief, who desired all of them, seeing that only 4 were coming, did not insist further upon asking for more Castilians, in order that these few who were going to him might not be alarmed and return to the ship. As soon as the Spaniards set foot on the shore, the 4 Indians who had remained in the ship as hostages, seeing that the Christians were now in the power, they even label them Christians.
Yeah, the Christians.
Versus, yeah. Seeing that the Castilians were now in the power of their people, threw themselves into the water, and diving deeply and swimming like fish, they went ashore, thus carrying out the order that their chief had given them. Those on the ship, seeing themselves victims of a hoax, left the bay before something worse should befall them.
Left the bay.
Very sad at having lost their companions through such an indiscretion. Just gave them up.
Like, we are out of here.
Just
What
gave
about
'em
those
up.
four? Fuck them.
Yeah, just gave them up, man. Like, our boss has been through here, man. They want to skin all of us alive. Don't you remember what happened in Cuba last year, man? Oh, shit.
It's the same crazy Indian.
Hoist sail, bitches. We out. No way. All right, then. These noble Christians just bail. Why they see that's just the color, because they want it to be the Christian against the savages, so they didn't illegally take anything. All right. So, did they make it ashore? Yeah. Where were we? Okay. So he ordered the four Spaniards to be guarded securely, so that on the occasion of their deaths he might hold a solemn festival, which, according to I mean, we're learning about Navarrete here. This poor dude got four of his men that were looking for him and wants to have a festival. Gonna have a party. Man, why won't they tell what they did? It's so... See, they're willing to tell what the natives did, but they won't tell what Navarrete did. It's crazy. All right. So, to celebrate, okay, solemn festival, which according to his, here we go again with adjectives, heathen custom, he expected to celebrate within a few days. When the time came, he ordered them to be brought forth naked to the plaza and to be shot with arrows, one at a time, like beasts, running them from one side to the other. And that too many arrows were not to be shot at the same time in order that they should die more slowly. And that their torment
We're going
be greater
to play a game.
and celebration longer and more festive. Oh, thus they dealt with three of the Spaniards, the chief deriving satisfaction from seeing them run in all directions, seeking help and nowhere finding it. When they wished to bring out the fourth, who was a youth, 18 years of age or so, a native named Juan Ortiz. Oh, Juan survives. I know. Sorry, spoiler.
See, they were good people.
The chief's wife came out, accompanied by her three young daughters. Facing her husband, she said to him that she begged him to be content with the three Spaniards killed and pardon the youth, because neither he nor his companions had been to blame for the evil that their predecessors had done, for they had not come with Navarrete, and that the boy especially deserved to be pardoned, for his youth absolved him of blame and called for mercy, and that it would be enough for him to remain there as a slave and not be killed cruelly without having committed any crime.
Good people.
In order to satisfy his wife and daughters, the chief granted Juan Ortiz his life, though afterward it was sad and bitter that often he envied his three dead companions, because the continuous and unceasing labor of carrying wood and water was so great, and his food and sleep so scanty, the daily cuffings, buffetings, and lashes, beside the other torments they inflicted upon him at the time of their special festivals. Thus it was...
I wonder if that part is true.
Well, so Juan survives and we'll see becomes like a translator for them, right, for the expedition. So what you're relying on here are the tales that Juan told around the fire, right? That's where this comes from, because this author was getting it from the soldiers, right? And the soldiers got it from Juan around the fire, as the expedition was going.
So how did he escape?
I guess we'll
We'll find out. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, any history
So
we
he
have
tried
on
the
Juan.
Indians in the end.
Right. Any history on Juan is from him. For all we know, Juan was happily married and had a family and everything was fine. But when he saw his countrymen came, he flipped. You know, I mean, there's you're relying directly on that person at this point, and it's by the fire trying to impress soldiers. Really, they ran him all day from dawn to dark.
You can put the microphone on the table.
Thank you. Have it, dude. So this goes on describing what
Because
happened
we,
with
we, we
Juan.
had complete detail of the tempest in your nasal area.
I'm so sorry.
You,
I forget there's people here.
nothing like a live show.
Okay, so we go on talking about what happened to poor
Juan.
Juan. And there's the honey in the throat. Okay, so the pity of the wife and the daughters of the chief succored him on these days, because they took him in immediately, clothed him, and did him other kindnesses, whereby they saved his life. It would have been better to take it away in order to free him from those hardships. Seeing that so many continuous tortures were not sufficient to kill Juan, and the hatred that he bore him increasing hourly, the chief, in order to put an end to him, commanded on one of his feast days that a great fire be built in the middle of the plaza, and when he saw a large bed of coals formed, he ordered it tended, and a wooden framework or a barbacoa be placed over it in the form of a gridiron. One vara, you're going to hear the term vara a lot. That was a term of measurement that is roughly equated to a meter or again to 3 feet. And that they put Juan Ortiz upon it in order to roast him alive.
Not to burn him alive, to
Or
roast
just
him.
wait. This was done, and here the poor Spaniard remained for some time, stretched on one side, fastened to the frame. At the cries that the poor unfortunate gave in the midst of the fire, the wife and daughters of the chief came, and begging the husband, and even reproaching his cruelty, they took him from the fire, already half roasted, having blisters on that side as large as half oranges, some of them broken and bleeding freely. The chief allowed it because they were women for whom he cared so much, and perhaps he did it also in order to have someone upon whom to visit his wrath in the future.
Half roasted.
Okay, the women carried Juan Ortiz to their house, and moved by pity at seeing him in that state, they treated him with herbs and juices. The Indians, both men and women, since they have no physicians, are great herbalists. Time and again, see, assuming
Really?
they have no,
Really?
right, I know,
But they are treating him with herbs, but they don't have herbalists.
physician, right. Time and again, they repented, having saved him from death on the first occasion, because of seeing how slowly and with what cruel tortures they were killing him. Tortures. After many days, Ortiz was cured. Those scars from the burns still remain. In order to not see him thus, and to free himself from the bother that his wife and daughters gave him with the entreaties, and so that he, Ortiz, might not become lazy, the chief directed that he be exercised in another punishment less severe than the past ones. This was that he guard day and night the dead bodies of the inhabitants of the town, which were deposited in the country in a forest at a distance from the settlements, at a place set apart for them. They were placed above ground in wooden chests that served as sepulchres, without hinges or any other security for the cover than some boards placed over them, with stones or timbers on top. Because of the poor protection these chests afforded for the bodies of the dead, they were carried away by the lions, or the panthers.
Okay, so that gives us a geographical, more or less, area. Because are there panthers Lions we know that there aren't, but are there panthers in
Yeah,
Florida?
yeah, you'd have some big cats. Yeah,
Okay.
I would think. Yeah, right. I mean, you can ask the technology while you're sitting there, but yeah, you would have had cats in Florida. That's why I think he goes trouble. He says lions, so but he says i.e. the authors, I assume, or the
Yeah, you have
translators
mountain lions, so
put
and
panthers, right? The black is it? I don't know which panther it is,
no, you have panthers of different types.
but yeah,
But
we do
I
have,
think they're talking about mountain lions most likely.
of which there are many in that country, much to the grief and anger of the Indians. The chief ordered Juan Ortiz to guard this place carefully. Well, I mean, this would have been literally in what we call Florida today, it seems from the description. Of which, okay, so the chief ordered Juan Ortiz to guard this place carefully so the Panthers should not carry off any body or part of it, protesting and vowing that, if they did so, he would infallibly be roasted to death. For guarding them, he gave him 4 darts. And so that's a small lance thrown by hand to throw at the lions or at other wild beasts that might approach the chests. Juan Ortiz, giving thanks to God for having rid him the continued presence of the chief, his master, went to guard the dead, hoping to have a better life with them than with the living. He guarded them with all care, chiefly at night, because then there was a greater danger. It happened that on one of the nights, when he was thus watching, he fell asleep toward dawn, unable to resist his drowsiness, for at this hour it usually attacks most strongly those who are watching. Just at this time, a lion came, and knocking off the covers of one of the chests, dragged out the body of a child, which had been thrown into it 2 days before, and carried it off. Juan Ortiz heard the noise that the covers made in falling, and as he hurried to the chest and failed to find the child's body therein, he considered himself lost. But with all his anxiety and dismay, he did not cease hunting for that lion, so that, if he should find him, he might recover the body or die in the attempt. On the other hand, he trusted to our Lord to give him strength to die on the following day, confessing and calling upon his name, for he knew that as soon as daylight came, the Indians must visit the chests, and not finding the child's body, they would burn him alive. Walking through the forest from one side to another in fear of death, he came to a wide path that passed through the center of it. And following it for a time with the intention of fleeing, though it was impossible to escape, he heard in the woods not far from where he was walking a noise as of a dog that is gnawing at bones. Listening carefully, he made sure of it, and suspecting that it might be the panther that was eating the child, he felt his way very carefully through the underbrush, approaching the place where he heard the noise. By the light of the moon, which was shining, though not very brightly, he saw near him the panther which was eating the child at its pleasure. Calling upon God and taking courage, Juan Ortiz threw a dart at it, and though he could not then see the shot that he had made because of the underbrush, yet he felt that it had not been bad, because his hand was left salty, as the hunters say, when they feel that they have made a good shot against beasts at night. When this very slender hope, and also because he had not heard the lion leave the place where he had shot at him, he waited for morning, commending himself to our Lord that he might succor him in that necessity. With the light of day, Juan Ortiz verified the good shot that he had made by guess that night, for he saw the lion dead, the entrails at the center of the heart transfixed, as was found later when they opened it, a thing that he himself, though he saw it, could not believe. With a satisfaction and joy that maybe, well, you can see Juan telling this by the fire. You know, you can see, the whole time I'm by the fire with him, man, listening to this. All right, so
He picks up the child, or what
with
remains?
a satisfaction and joy that may be better imagined than told, He dragged it by 1 foot, not pulling out the dart, so that his master might see it just as he had found it, having first gathered up and taking back the chest the fragments of the child's body that he had found uneaten. The chief and all those in his town wondered greatly at this deed, for in that land it is held generally to be a miraculous thing for a man to kill a panther. And thus they treat him who succeeds in killing one with great veneration and respect. And because this is such a fierce animal, he who kills it ought to be esteemed everywhere, especially if he does so without a shot from a crossbow or harquebus, just as Juan Ortiz did. Although it is true that
They didn't have crossbows,
right, the Spanish did, not the natives, right.
but they're
That's
referring to the natives.
that's what no, well what he's again you're getting his perspective, right? The soldiers telling him saying they couldn't, but you could with we could with our weapons. With this good fortune on the part of Juan Ortiz, the wife and daughters of the chief took more spirit and courage to intercede for him, that he might be pardoned entirely and made use of in honorable employments. Boy, the ladies sure do like Juan, don't they? Yeah, he's definitely telling this story. Look, man, not only the mom, but the daughters too. They just kept asking for me. I'm telling you.
Amy's not buying the tale.
I know, right? I think I love it because it shows you. I mean, it shows you the reality of what was going on here. As long as you're not taking Juan's tale, because we know how we got Juan's tale, right? You got it from the soldiers that heard it from Juan where around the fire after they got him in their party, and we're like, "You can talk to them, cool, come with us."
And when he's feeling safe.
Right, exactly. He's getting all safe around the fire, going, "Yeah, man, you won't believe the shit they did." At one time, he was cutting down a tree and he hit himself. Look, man, they burned me alive. I swear. But the ladies, yeah, they couldn't get enough old Juan here. I brought the Portuguese with me. You know what I'm saying?
Spanish.
Spanish, whatever. Spanish just wish they were Portuguese, right?
Yeah.
All right. So they intercede, and for a few days thereafter, the chief treated him better, both in the esteem and
Better.
favor accorded to him, and in referring to the heroic deed that they in their vain religion so esteem. Look at that. Vain religion. But look, he slipped up right there. He still called it a religion, right? And if they have a religion, what are they? They're not savages. But he put the adjective on it. Vain religion. Hang on 1 second. Okay, so back to Juan's fireside tale. The women intercede. The husband treats him better. And where were we?
The chief
yeah,
treated him better and spoke of him with honor and so on.
Yeah, okay. According to his, yep, in their vain religion, so esteem and honor that they regard it as sacred and more than human. However, and this was the injury that he could not pardon, every time he remembered that they, the Spaniards, had thrown his mother to the dogs. Oh, well. That's one of the things they did, had thrown his mother to the dogs and left her to be eaten by them. And when he went to blow his nose and could not find his nostrils, the devil possessed him to avenge himself on Juan Ortiz, as if he had cut them off. And inasmuch as he always carried the offense before his eyes with the memory of it, so he's always walking around with
no nose.
Well, I mean, yeah, and he's got no nose, and he's seeing the fact that the Spaniards had fed his mom to the dogs.
In front of him, yeah.
Yeah.
No wonder he fled to the woods and then prepared.
No wonder my nose has been running this whole time. That's why they wouldn't tell us. They fed his moms to the doggies, and they cut his nose off. Okay. Well, though he restrained these passions for some time, being able to resist them no longer, he said one day to his wife and daughters that it was impossible for him to allow that man to remain alive because his life was very odious and abominable to him. That every time he saw him, past injuries were revived, and he was offended anew. Therefore, he commanded them, Lord, got my nose itching now. Can you imagine, man? I mean, sitting there with your nose cut off and looking at one of the foreigners who had done it. Like, I mean, I get it.
Let me just answer to to Amy. Is that these ancient texts, they might seem extremely boring, right? But
Right.
as soon as you start, instead of reading it in that perspective, as soon as you start listening to it and actually recreating all the elements and adding the story that we can add to the tale, it becomes like absolutely incredible. And we didn't get to the part that you were reading yesterday because that
Oh, we got a
part,
long way to go, bro.
yeah, I know. It's just,
It is. It's like when we were reading yesterday, and guys, the genesis of this idea of us doing this. Are you still on the right microphone? Test, test. Yeah,
yes,
there's.
yes, you are.
The genesis of this idea was I started reading about Kofachekwe and the temple that was there. And as Ricardo was listening, he was like, it's like Lord of the Rings. And it is. It is. Like, no joke. When they get to Mabilla and are describing it, they talk about a tree growing out of the walls. Right? The wall was so big and the place was so old that there was a tree growing out of it. I don't want to tell you what happened to that tree. We'll save that. It's worth the save. What's up, Jacob? You big boy. You can almost see him now. there,
There he is.
there he is. All right. So, Juan Ortiz is there with the noseless chief. All right, and Juan Ortiz can't take it anymore. Past injuries were revived, and he was offended anew. Therefore he commanded them that they were in no manner to intercede for him further, unless they desired to participate in the same rage and anger, and that in order to finish with that Spaniard, he had determined that on a certain feast day, which was soon to be celebrated, he was to be shot to death with arrows, as his companions had been, notwithstanding his bravery, for as an enemy he should be rather abhorred than esteemed. The wife and daughters of the chief, because they saw him enraged, and understood that no intercession would be effective, and also because it seemed to them that it was too much to importune, and so to please the master for the sake of the slave, did not dare say a word in opposition to him. Rather, with feminine astuteness, they came to tell him that this would be a good thing to do because it was his pleasure. But the eldest of the daughters, in order to further her plan and make it succeed, a few days before the celebration, secretly notified Juan Ortiz of her father's determination against him, and that neither she, nor her sisters, nor her mother would avail or could do anything with the father, he having imposed silence upon them and threatened that if they should break it. Desiring to encourage the Spaniard, she added to this sad notice others contrary to it, and said to him, so that you may not distrust me, nor despair of your life, nor fear that I will not do all that I can to save it. If you are a man and have courage to flee, I will favor and help you, so that you may escape and reach safety. Tonight, at a certain hour and place, you will find an Indian to whom I entrust your safety and my own. He will guide you to a bridge that is leagues from here. Upon reaching it, you will order him not to pass beyond, but to return to the town before dawn, so that they may not miss him. My own daring and his may not become known, so that evil may not befall him and me for having done you a good favor. 6 leagues beyond that bridge is a town whose lord wishes me well and desires to marry me. His name is Mukoko. Tell him on behalf that I send you to him so that he may succor and favor you as he ought to do. I know that he will do all he can for you, as you will see. Commend yourself to your God, for I can do no more. Juan Ortiz threw himself at her feet in acknowledgement of the mercy and favor that she was conferring and had always conferred upon him. And he at once made ready to travel on the following night. At the hour appointed, after the members of the chief's household were asleep, he set out in search of the promised guide and left the town with him without anyone hearing them. Upon reaching the bridge, he told the Indian to return at once, very cautiously, to his house, having first learned from him that there was no chance of his losing the road as far as the town of Mukaku. Okay. And so, yeah, Juan Ortiz, his story goes on for a bit because we get told about how they find him, how they rescue him. Do you want to continue with Juan Ortiz's story, or do you want to continue with travels? All right.
I think we can continue unless you think it's too boring and on the rest of it.
No, if it's that's what I'm asking.
I think
you know?
everybody now is hanging to know if
I've read it
get to
all
the
many
city.
times, so okay. So now we're going to hear about Mukaku. We got about 2 pages on Juan left here. Juan Ortiz, as a man who was fleeing, reached the place before dawn, but for fear of causing a disturbance, did not dare enter it. When it was day, he saw 2 Indians come out from the town along the same road that he was taking. They attempted to shoot him with their bows and arrows, as they always go, armed with these weapons. Juan Ortiz, who also had them, put an arrow in his bow to defend himself from them and also to attack them. How potent is a little favor, especially if it be from a lady. But for we see that shortly before he did not know where to hide himself, being in fear of death. Now he dared give it, death, to others with his own hand, simply because of having been favored by a pretty, discreet, and generous girl, whose favor exceeds all other human gifts. It's definitely Juan's tale. With which, it's because she loved me, man, I was able to do it. I don't know. We're probably all guilty of that one. I don't know why I give you a hard time, bro. With which, having recovered spirit and strength and even pride, he told them that he was not an enemy, but that he was coming with a message from a lady for the lord of that place. Hearing this, they did not shoot him, but returned with him to the town and notified the chief that the slave of Hirungwa was set there with a message for him. Mukoko, or Mukoko, that's the same spelling. Why did you give me an or? Oh, Mukoka or Mokoka. I like Mokoka. For it is the same, informed of this, went out to the plaza to receive the message Juan Ortiz was bringing to him. After having saluted him as best he could after the manner of the Indians themselves, Juan Ortiz told him briefly of the martyrdom his master had imposed upon him, as evidence of which he showed on his bodies the scars, blows, and wounds they had given him, and how now finally his lord was determined to kill him in order to celebrate and solemnize with his death such and such feast day.
Another one that wanted to kill him.
Listen, man, your neighbor was trying to kill me. He wanted to cook me. You see? But that girl you want to marry? Uh-huh. I can just see it now.
I think that's why he received him. He thought, oh, the chief finally decided to give me his daughter.
Right, that's where.
And then he realized that is to help this dude. What the hell is this?
Yep. All right, so showed the body of the scars, you gave it. Now he finally it's such feast day, which he expected to hold soon. He told how the wife and daughters of the chief, his master, though they had often saved his life, did not dare to speak in his favor because of the Lord having forbidden it under penalty of his anger, and how the eldest daughter of his Lord, desiring that he should not die, as the last and best remedy, had ordered and encouraged him to flee. and giving him a guide, had set him on his way to his town and house. In her name he presented himself before him, whom he supplicated by the love that he had for her to receive him under his protection. Yeah. Yes. Okay, listen. She says that if you love her, okay, if you want to show it to her, you're gonna let me come in,
Don't
man.
if you do anything against me, then she won't love you anymore.
She won't. Yeah.
No, no, so
You want to get in that, right? Okay. It's soup. All right. Though he had often said, okay, did not that he had for her to receive him under his protection, and as a thing commended by her to favor him, as he ought to do so. Mokoko received him affably, and heard him with pity at learning of the abuses and torments that he had experienced, which were plainly shown by the scars on his body. For, dressed after the manner of the Indians of the country, he wore only trousers or trunks. Okay. Alonso de Carmona tells at this point, in addition to what we have said, that he embraced him and he kissed him on the face as a sign of peace. See, he references, often you'll see him referencing other chroniclers going, guy, soldier I talked to said this, but the other chronicler also adds this. He, the chief, replied that he was welcome and told him to try to forget the fears of his past life, that in his company and house he would have a very different and opposite existence. He does want the daughter. Oh my goodness. That for the sake of serving the person who had sent him, and for him who had come to his person and house for succor. How do you say that? Succor? Succor.
so
He
no
would
soup.
no, he's giving him soup. He's giving him soup. He's giving him cake. He's probably even offering him a daughter at this point. He's just
What I'm surprised is they decided to call that guy Juan, because at this point he should be called Job, right?
Job. Or who is it? Joseph, the one that was sold into slavery?
No, the
Yeah.
one that go into the whale and it was
Oh,
so
Jonah.
Jonah. 'Cause
Jonah.
what is the guy that so Lucifer goes to the last time he's accepted in heaven, he goes to God and tells him, well, your subjects only love you because you treat them well, because you give them what they want.
Right.
And then God decides, no, I'm going to show you that they love me even in misery and adversity. And so he chooses this guy. I think it's Job, because we
Job.
say
J-O-B. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's spelled like job in English, but you say Job.
Job, and he keeps ruining his life worse and worse and
Worse,
worse and
worse and
worse.
worse,
Yeah,
worse.
yeah. So that's more or less what this guy suffered until this point. So I'm curious to see if
It
if
is.
that curse is broken or
It's like
not.
the trials of Job, which again sort of echoes
Roasted,
Odysseus. Yeah, it's this story of, remaining.
flayed in festivals.
Yeah. But will you remain true to something that's bigger than you, as it
Can
goes?
you imagine them?
Well, if it is Job's story, I mean, Job ends up back with more than he had before. That is
Yeah.
the flip side of the story is he might have lost 1 million, but he ends up with, 1 billion. So, go ahead.
No, I was just imagining the festivities, and they say the chief suddenly says, "Bring the Spaniard," and they are fogling him while they're eating and laughing, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Well, I mean, they cut his nose off, dude, and they fed his mom to the dogs.
yeah, I think that's the part that he's most offended. It's you can imagine the screaming and the pain and it's, And-
Yeah. And it constantly is there. And every time you look at that other,
yeah, and you were reading, and he said, and it came
and every time
back
your
to
nose
him.
is itching, you can find it like me because it's a ghost itch.
Yeah, but when he was considered a hero or more than human, and then there's a part you're reading when he's remembered again of the offenses of the Spaniard. I think that's the birthday of his mother's death, right? And so he's remember all of that. Okay, no, that's enough.
There you
Let's
go.
kill the guy.
Yep.
So,
It's true because pain is like that. We think we've whatever dealt with it, and then
Well,
here it comes again, back around in the cycle, and it's like it's all fresh again.
we have to see that from the perspective of the Europeans that were getting these chronicles, it's like those savages, those heathens, right? But from their perspective, imagine the guy had a life. He probably wasn't the chief at that time yet, right? And you see these Spanish that have no respect for life, that treated them as lower than not humans almost, right? And had fun with the dogs, throwing people to the dogs, right? So he can't let anyone alive. He knows how bad these people are. He's categorizing them as a whole, not individually. He didn't look if it was a good kid or not. It's just they're a threat too big to be left. And he was right, because he in the end he betrays them. So
It's like if aliens, right? Think about if aliens came and fed your mom to the dogs and cut your nose off, right? That's what it was like. It wasn't. It's like you want to fault him for stereotyping, but it's not quite stereotyping. The Spaniards were
put the
such others.
microphone on the table.
The Spaniards were such others, right? So it's akin to aliens coming. So what would you do if something so foreign came to you and did something so atrocious? You would then go, no, you got to keep those out. It makes perfect sense. And the fact that Juan Ortiz makes it to tell this story is impressive to me,
But how far were they from the coast? Because they could travel to it by a canoe. My question is, couldn't they put fire into arrows? Because the ship is made of wood and the sails burn very fast. So couldn't he burn the ship and make him come ashore for life and then kill them all?
I don't know. Where we should get to here, we're going to get to how the Spaniards come across Ortiz, and that should give us a geolocation or an understanding of where they are. Okay, so let's finish with him meeting Makoko.
Yeah, and you'll stop there. We have 9 minutes.
I mean, whatever. We got a lot of book to get through. We may not be able to stay on our time limit here. All right. So there he kissed him on the... Okay, so his life would be very different. Okay, all that this good chief said in favor of Juan Ortiz, he performed. And indeed, much more than he promised, for he immediately made him his steward, kept him constantly with him day and night, doing him much honor, more particularly after he learned that he had killed the panther with the dart. In short, he treated him like a well-beloved brother, for there are brothers who love one another like water and fire. And although Hiragua, suspecting that he had gone to Makoko for protection, asked for him many times, Makoko always made an excuse for not giving him up, saying finally, among other things, that since he had come to his house to let him be, and that he was so odious that he, Hiragu, had lost very little in losing such a slave. He made the same reply to another chief, his brother-in-law, named Urubarakuksi, through whom Hiragua made the request. Seeing that his message was of no effect, he went personally to ask him, and in his presence, Makoko replied the same as in his absence, adding other angry words, and told him that since he was brother-in-law, it was unjust to order him to do a thing against his reputation and honor, that he would not be doing his duty if he should turn over his own enemy, an unfortunate who had come to him for refuge, so that Hiragua might sacrifice and kill him like a wild beast for his own entertainment and pastime. Makoko defended Juan Ortiz from these two chiefs, who asked for him so urgently and insistently, with such generosity that he was willing to forego, as he did, the marriage he affectionately desired to make with the daughter of Hiragua, and the relationship and friendship of the father-in-law, rather than return the slave to him who asked for him in order to kill him. He kept the latter constantly with him, much esteemed and well treated, until Hernando de Soto entered Florida.
Okay, that's an excellent place to stop.
You sure?
Is it more from him?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How long until he actually meets Hernando de Soto?
So the next section is the governor sends for Juan Ortiz. But here, let's finish this. Let me go these two. There's two
Sure.
paragraphs left where we were, at least. Juan Ortiz was among those Indians for 10 years, one and a half in the power of Iragua, and the rest the good Makoko. Through a bar, Though a barbarian, he dealt with this Christian in quite another manner. That word. Look, everything we just read, where you're hearing about them sending messengers back and forth, the entreaties to each other, the talking about wrongs, about honor, about morals, about what we do. Dude, what they're describing is more advanced than what was going on between royal courts back in Europe.
Yes.
Like, seriously.
And and it's the I'm intrigued by it will not be explained, but I'm intrigued why Mukukwa risked war with neighboring villages
Yeah.
because of a stranger, and there's no sign of him marrying the other chief daughter so
Yeah,
far.
it could be so far that, maybe Juan was just taken care of the whole time and he was just with the good chief and he had to add the story of the bad chief to get some street cred. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but imagine that Mukoko didn't like the other chief very much, right?
There's got to be something going on.
And so it's a irritating point that he'll have. It's that grain of sand that he can keep to irritate the other guy, right? But he seems very confident that he's not inferior in terms of at least as a force.
He spends 8.5 years with the dude as like
So,
his personal.
and we know how
Conscript.
the other chief is determined. So he must have some pretty good army at his service because he was not worried about that. Either that or they were very peaceful with one another.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, obviously they're peaceful because look, think of how bad uh, uh, Hilaguo or whatever wanted Juan Ortiz from Makoko, but what are they doing? They're doing diplomacy over it. There's no battles, there's no arrows flying, right? As passionate as they were, as much as obviously they wanted these things from each other's, the chiefs, they did it all diplomatically, right?
Talk.
It's all talk. It's all going to visit. It's all formal. It's sending messengers, going to visit. They're not going to war, which is exactly how the Spanish would have handled it, or any European nation. At this point, if think of any Western king, it had his nose cut off, man, and you were keeping the dude he wanted. That's it. War declared. I mean, seriously.
For God and glory.
Yeah. And here these dudes are, carrying it out all diplomatically and talking about honor, right? It's not the
And he
people.
says he just want him to kill him like a beast in a celebration, right?
Yeah. So it says here the reason reason Hernando sent for him. So the governor, having heard this account which we have given of the life of Juan Ortiz, although in a confused form, in the town of the chief of Hirakwa, where we have left him at present. Okay, so that's what all this was about. DeSoto is there with, or trying to get, that's right, Hirakwa was the one that's hiding in the woods. Okay. So that's where we're back to now. More briefly, he'd also heard it before, more briefly in Cuba from one of the four Indians whom we said that the Juan de Anasco, accountant, had seized when he was sent to explore the coast, and who happened to be a subject of this chief. When the Indians mentioned Juan Ortiz in the account that he gave in Havana, leaving off the name Juan because he did not know it, he said Ortiz. And as to the poor speech of the Indian was added the worse understanding of the good interpreters who stated what he was trying to say. And as all the listeners had for their chief purpose going to seek gold, on hearing the Indian say Ortiz, without waiting for further statements on his part, they thought that he was plainly saying that in his country there was much gold.
Where does it say that? Where?
So do you see what's going on? They had captured natives, four of them, and brought them back to Havana, right? And the natives say the word Ortiz or whatever, and I guess that translates in Spanish. They thought that he was saying there was gold, but they were just recounting this tale of one of their people named Juan Ortiz, but he couldn't
Yes.
remember Juan, so he just
Do you see the prophecy of it all?
that that shows right. That shows their one tracked mind, dude. Their one tracked mind.
Yeah, but it's also the prophecy that is woven into that because it's this guy that is the martyr that suffers, that is saved, that is rewarded,
And they don't
and
even
then
hear a story. They hear gold.
it's his name confused with the word gold that leads to a fever of killing all these people. It's not because of what he suffered, it's because his story that doesn't even enter there. It's just the name
Right.
gold, right?
You're right.
It's like that advertisement for cats where the lady is talking to the cat and the only thing the cat listens is the name of the food that he likes.
Yeah.
So he's blah 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 whiskas saquetas. Blah 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 whiskas saquetas. Because he hears the part he's interested on. So it's like a circle.
It
It's a
is.
religious story. It is a
It's
religious
for
story.
it's very foreboding, and you can definitely see the spiritual sort of implications already being written. You might, we'd call them synchronicities or something like that. The story underlying here that you said it. You've got the guy that's been suffering, that's been through this ordeal, that's really been through some heroic shit. That could be something magnanimous for this venture. He could be a bridge between the two. But instead, because of the mindset of this entire expedition and the entire Western world at the time, right? What did they hear when they had the chance to hear his
Gold.
story?
The one
Gold.
thing that there wasn't there.
Yep.
Right? And keep
And
in
so
mind that
all of the fervor that came after, everything we're going to read about, everything that they were trying to go, oh, that must be gold, first got cemented by poor old Juan Ortiz's story.
Juan Ortiz, yeah, and remember, he started as someone who is in mission from God,
Yeah.
right? Because that's
Yeah.
what they were going to. They were under
Yeah.
the decree of God to go because the king had the approval of the Pope gave it to whatever is the guy that was invading at the time, and that's how he starts. He starts like on mission from God. Then he's captured, tortured, sees horrors, right? Flees by the grace of God,
Yep.
and then he's rewarded.
Finds a protector, has a
Yeah.
good life. But still, when his people come and the story is offered, it kicks off this great tragedy we're about to embark upon. It kicks off really everything. It lights the match of the fever that would then imbue every atrocity and everything that occurred thereafter.
Yeah, and
And
can
it
you
all
imagine?
began with the Spaniards' actions of feeding this dude's mother
Yeah,
to the dogs and cutting
dogs,
off his
exactly.
nose.
And can you imagine a guy that really knows the story and he's trying to tell, no, man, it's Juan Ortiz, it's his story, and the other guy, what? Nonsense. It's gold. It's full of gold. What are you saying about who's Juan? Who the hell is Juan? Who is that guy? It's gold.
Confused form. Uh, all right, so let's finish this little bit off. Without waiting for further statements on his part, they thought that he was plainly saying that in his country there was much gold.
Gold.
And they congratulated themselves and rejoiced merrily at hearing it mentioned, although with such a different significance and sense. But when the governor ascertained that Juan Ortiz was in the power of the chief Mococo, he thought it would be well to send for him, alike in order to deliver him from the power of the Indians, and because he was in need of a speaker and interpreter upon whom he could depend. He therefore chose a gentleman from Sevilla named Baltazar de Gallegos, who was serving as mayor of the fleet and the army, who, because of his great virtue, strength, and valor, deserved to be general. So he sends him with 60 lancers to Makoko, to tell him how gratified were he and all the Spaniards who accompanied him by the honor and favors that he had shown to Juan Ortiz, and how much he desired that he might have the opportunity of requiting him. At present, he begged that he give Juan Ortiz to him, DeSoto, for he needed him for very important matters, and he asked when it would be convenient for him to make him a visit, as it would give him great pleasure to know and have a friend. So Gallegos left the camp with his 60 lancers. Makoko learned of the coming of DeSoto with all of his men and horses, that he
You see,
landed
again,
so
you
near.
learned,
He
you learned
landed,
of it.
yeah, and he landed so near his own country. So this is, again, was in Florida and was near the Bay of Espiritu Santo where they landed, and fearing that he might do him some harm, desired very prudently and advisedly to avert the evil that might come to him. In order to do so, he summoned Juan and said to him, "You must know, brother, that in this town of your good friend there is a Spanish captain with 1,000 fighting men and many horses who are coming to conquer this country. You well know that what I have done for you, and how in order to save your life and not deliver you to him who held you as a slave and desired to kill you, I chose rather to fall into disgrace with all my relatives and neighbors than to do what they had asked me against you. Now a time and occasion has come in which you may repay me for the good reception, entertainment, and friendship I have accorded you, though I never did it with the expectation of any reward. But since events have happened thus, it will be wise not to lose what is offered us. Go to the Spanish general, and on your behalf and on my own, beg him that in return for the service I have done him and his whole nation through you, since I would do the same for any of them, be pleased not to do me harm." So they make a trade. Juan Ortiz, rejoicing with this good news, runs off.
I still think that Makoko is somewhat a chief with some illusions of grandeur, and now he's just afraid because he was enjoying playing the denial to the other tribes, right? But
Yeah.
he's seeing a lot of Spanish in
Let's
this.
finish. They set up a trap for him, it looks like, actually, to finish your thought of how they treat him. Hang on. Let's do this paragraph real quick. Juan, okay. I offer him, so he's, go tell him I offer him everything. This is the chief telling Juan, go tell DeSoto I offer him everything, so that you may be escorted, becomes both you and me. I send with you 50 nobles of my household, and you will protect them and me as our friendship obligates you. Juan Ortiz, rejoicing at the good news and inwardly giving thanks to God for it, replied to Makoko that he was much pleased that a time and occasion had arisen in which to repay the kindness. For saving his life, but also in the many favors and esteem and honor he had received from his great virtue and courtesy. He would give a very full account and report of all this to the Spanish captain and all his people, so that he might concede to and reward him. He was very confident that the general, on his part, would do what he asked, for the Spanish nation prided itself upon being a people grateful for favors.
Yes.
And thus, certainly, he could confidently hope to obtain that which he sent to ask of the governor. The 50 Indians who the chief had ordered to prepare came at once, and with Juan Ortiz they took the public road that goes from one town to the other, and they set out the same day. It happened that after the Spaniards had marched more than 3 leagues along the wide and straight highway. Man, they had big roads, didn't they? That went to the town of Makoko. The Indian who guided them, thinking that it was not a good thing to behave so loyally toward people who were coming to subjugate them and take away their lands and freedoms, you think, and who long before had shown themselves to be enemies, though up to the present they had not received injuries of which they could complain, changed his plan in guiding them, and took the first footpath he saw that led into the highway. After following it a short distance, he left it, as it was not straight, and thus he led them most of the day without a road, and lost, drawing them always in an arc toward the sea coast, with the design of coming upon some swamp or creek or bay in which to drown them if possible. The Castilians did not discover the deception of the Indian, since they were not acquainted with the country, until one of them saw through the trees of an open forest through which they were marching the topsails of the ships they had left, and saw that they were very near the coast, of which fact he had advised the captain. The latter, seeing the guide's iniquity, threatened him with death, making a gesture of throwing a lance at him. Fearing that they would kill him, the Indian indicated with signs and such words as he could that they should return to the highway, but that it was necessary to retrace all their route that lay off the road, and thus they returned the way they came to seek it. So they haven't even gotten away from the boats yet, and they are already being fought against by even the one guide, the first guide they're given, essentially.
They were not fools.
You know, they weren't. They saw him coming from the get-go, man. They saw him coming.
Well, mark the page so we can continue.
Page marked, and yeah, I like what you drew out of that, man. Out of the Juan Ortiz and the gold kind of being what really kicks this whole thing off, man. Yeah. There's a lot to that we can reflect upon, I do believe, actually. All right, we're on 114. Out of 300 or so? Sorry, 400.
Yeah, we jumped a few pages off the beginning, but
we might have to schedule some 3-hour read-alongs. Well, if there's anybody,
I enjoyed it very much.
So. I think so too. I really do. I enjoy just in that little bit, man. And as we do this, we'll probably get better at a little structure. But just in that little bit, the glimpse we're given of the native population, and I mean, they haven't even gotten away from the ships yet. The glimpse we're given of the native population. Look, Ma, no hands.
Look, Ma, no teeth.
The glimpse we're given of the native population is so contrary to the. Again, I'm not speaking to the people who have spent their life in academia studying the natives, right? But it is so contrary to the narrative that is so confidently portrayed and handed to the general public, right? I mean, to sit here and hear about these stately negotiations, you know, and things proceeding well past the point where violence would have been evoked, you know, in our society. We're already seeing a people that's not what we were told was here. We're seeing a very orderly, advanced, moral.
They had roads and highways.
They had huge roads. They had huge highways. They had codes. They had morals. They had religions. They had everything that we would recognize as a society, you know?
They had lodges.
It looked different, right? Man, when they go in here and they start describing some of these temples and stuff they encountered, bro, it is so much more than what we conceive of, right? And what the West had conceived of to do with structures, right? Just so decorative, and the way the earth is, you know, incorporated in all the natural elements.
Even in the 1700s, 1800s, I don't know exactly when that was done, maybe 1900s, when they can't beat the Indians and they decide, okay, so let's take care of all of their food. Yeah. And they try to kill all the buffalo. Do you imagine the level of despair that you need to be to kill an entire species in order to starve a people and weaken it so you can conquer it, right? So even in this time, it must, because of the Caribbeans, it has to be 19th century. or 20th century. I don't know. 19th, a lot, right? Or end of 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, when they decide to kill all the buffaloes. To me, I always saw that as such a desperate act, because they couldn't be that primitive. They were very smart and they knew how to adapt, right? And they kept adapting to its enemy, right? Because the things that they suffered from the Spaniards, I think, kept in their minds. They wouldn't let that happen again.
Right.
So even hundreds of years have passed.
It's like the story that's been handed or painted for us is they almost, it's like they want us to believe that these people were like new arrivals, you know, fresh little upstarts, right? But when you just look at the behavior described to us so far, right, without even looking into the stuff we'll get into about all the technology the natives had, but just looking at this, the cultural artifacts that had all that were developed, the diplomacy, the morals, the codes, the send this guy, no send that guy. No, we need to send nobles. We don't need to send a little guy. This is more important, right? All of that structure that's in place, that takes a very long time to get established so that now large territories, right? These are large territories these chiefs have, these little mini nations interact
50
with,
lords. He gathered
right.
50 lords
Yeah, just from that town, from that town.
on the spot.
From that town, right? Exactly, man. And that's the numbers and the things that keep we'll take from this whole reading. That when they go to these places and they've got 200 attendants just at that town, right?
You could be,
And when they travel from town to town and they pass 10 other smaller towns, you know, each day, and it takes them 20 days to get from one big town to the next. It's not what
you,
we've been told at
you
all.
can go to the King of Spain and ask him to get 50 lords, and you won't be able
He
to do
won't.
it
Yeah.
on this.
Right. Right. That's the thing. It's it's so much more than what we have. And by that I mean at this time the West had, right? And today what we think is our legacy. But in fact, these people that were here, this is our legacy too. I mean, you know, it is our human legacy. And the fact that we have to fight so hard to get at it is a bit sad, but it's also an honor, right? And it's very I'm very grateful. You know, I know you are too, to be sitting here in this position of trying to get to these things and understand these things, because it's an entire honestly missing piece of the human story, and what it adds to the human story is so very different. It's like Makoko versus Iwaga, right? It's so polar opposite ways of seeing and interacting with the world, that therefore it has so much to offer to all of us, man, you know?
I think it's a completely different mindset in
It
terms
is.
of what living and surviving in a good way
Yes.
is,
Yes.
right? And that was the clash after the terror, when they were forced to living side by side. I think
Yes.
that was the greatest crash, because it's a completely mindset of
It
what
is.
one needs to be happy and to be successful.
It's a completely different priority system. You can see, you know, the honor that we like to talk about. You know, we use that word to talk about like knights and a romantic chivalric age. Well, no matter which chronicler you're reading, right? One thing they definitely do is they show you that these natives had such strong senses of honor, right? And that they ordered their priorities not on material things. You know, they ordered their priorities, be they spiritual belief or be they on things that we label as honor, right, and code. That they did indeed live and die by these things, much as we like to wish we did, or we like to pretend, you know, these Western guys did. But as you see in the story, that was not the case. You know, that was not the case at all. These guys, you know, the words we would use today, if anyone, you know, just today came through the country and did what these people did, you would undoubtedly call them human traffickers, mass murderers, rapists, and psychopaths. That would be the word you'd use. There'd be no other way to describe the behavior that we're going to read about.
Yeah. And yet, because we can distance ourselves from them in many, many hundreds of years, we call them heroes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You won't associate, even if you've been in school and learned about the conquistadors in from a Western perspective, you won't see them as murderers. You'll see them as someone was trying to help that people, to bring them civilization, to
Right.
bring them religion, and they were stubborn to live in their primitive ways
Right.
of of stone and fiddling about in the dirt, and it's not butt flaps, right?
No, it's not.
I heard this expression when they were talking about in by the brothers, Serpent Brothers. Is that the name of the
Yeah.
podcast?
That's a fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 10 years ago, I heard them that expression, and it kept on me because that's the perspective. They were that's just a bunch of wild man in butt flaps, right? And that's not the case at all. No.
It's so far from it that words almost fail to try to describe the divide between the reality and narrative. And that to me is the great value as we wrap up here, Ricardo, in doing this, because that's the great value it gave me personally, and that is the great value I hope it gives to any audience members, is you're starting to see a firsthand account of what was here, and it's very different from the account we
And
all have in our heads.
keep in mind that these guys left the boat with a guide that made them do a circle, so they didn't went far. But the chief in the village already knew they were coming.
Yeah.
So
And they didn't even discern until nearly they saw the sails that they were going in circles.
what is this guy doing?
I mean, yeah, you got one guy misleading the whole damn army. Nobody's picking up on it, and just they weren't savages.
Like the emissary that the Garments sent to the Romans when they wanted to learn the route of the salt trade from the Atlas Mountains to Garmentia. The guy led them 3 months on the ocean. 3 months until they finally said, what the hell? And the guy kept saying, "Oh, tomorrow we'll see. We'll closer." He fooled them for 3 months until the Romans had to get back with nothing. Right?
Imagine being the guy that saw the top of the sails first. This
Did
is
we
gonna
get to
be,
the other? Is that another ocean, or are we coming back?
dude. Have you been to like Tampa? You haven't. That part of Florida, man. I mean, all of southern Florida alone, but especially down there, it's swampy, dude. Around here too, I spend a lot of time on foot around here, and that's the one thing I keep the really early on hit me is, man, when you try to imagine people coming through these swamps and stuff on horses, it's just, man,
Yeah, but
be
you've been in
unimaginable.
the woods, right? So these people were complete jackass in terms of orientation.
Hello. Hey. Yeah, let me wrap up the podcast. Can I call you right back? Okay. Okay. We're wrapping up now. I'll be right there. Bye.
Okay, we continue after.
To be continued. Daughters need gas.
Okay.
So, all right, bro. Well,
All right.
thank you
Bye
very
bye.
much. Thank you, everyone that has stuck with us through this, and we're just gonna keep working our way through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoying it. Thank you all,
Thank you all.
and a very fond farewell. Thank
Yeah,
you
we'll
very
see you in a
much.
few days.
Yeah, and don't forget, go and watch the UU Crew News that also streamed today. Thank you all.
All right, guys. Bye. See you next
Bye.
time.